So guys, what does a sternwheeler have in common on the Yukon River that is the same common ground as Route 66? Stay tuned. Welcome to a National Historic Site for Canada. This is the SS Klondike. Now, I wanted to share with you, we're in Whitehorse, Yukon. And the reason I wanted to share this with you today is these guys, there was a lot of them on the river over the last couple of hundred years. Back in 1866, the very first sternwheeler, powered by steam, came down through the Bering Strait with the Alaska America Telegraph Company, and they started to navigate this river and bring freight up and down the river from Dawson City to Whitehorse on the Yukon River. Now, there was treacherous places along this entire river, as you can see. Yikes. Yikes. Can you imagine being a steamboat captain back in the day? That would be a commanding job, and there's a lot riding on your career and on what your call of action is. Now, Five Finger Rapids is one of those locations that causes all kinds of grief. They actually use dynamite to blow up parts of that so that the inside passage was navigatable with these guys without touching and tipping over, and that's how they did it at the beginning. I can't even imagine what it would be like to bring a sternwheeler down, touch, and go over the rapids and then keep going. That doesn't thrill me at all. This is one of the largest ones ever built for the Yukon River. It was built here in Whitehorse. And this is the SS Klondike number 2. The SS Klondike number 1 was built in 1929. It's steam powered, just like all of them. And it ran aground in the middle 30s, I think 36 or 38, in a storm. Maybe it wasn't a storm. And they took the boiler and many of the components that needed to be forged, those kinds of components, off of it and rebuilt it so it'd be the next summer back on the river. This was decommissioned in the 50s. So these guys needed 3 feet of water in order to take all of their cartage, all their freight. These were not designed for transporting people. That was way too expensive. That would be like buying an airplane ticket that would cost you $60,000. Just not going to do it. That was it was incredible expense back in the day to be a passenger on one of these guys. Back in 1890, when gold had been discovered in the Klondike, there was 60 of these registered on the river between Whitehorse and Dawson City in 1890. Here's one of the ways to measure if you have enough water. If you have this much water, you're good. This much and above, you have enough water to navigate the river. Okay, so why did this become a piece of history? Well, in the 1950s, something changed. Same kind of thing that changed with Route 66. The highway all the way up to Dawson City was complete. Now, that highway now all your freight could come up, all your groceries, all of your hardware could come up on trucks, and there was no more reason for these, and they decommissioned all of them. So Whitehorse is where they decommissioned a number of them, including this guy, and including the SS Keno. But there was also a number of them that were decommissioned and taken off the river in Dawson City. All right, so we found out from the visitor center that there is a site 2 of a steamboat graveyard. So we walked up the beach, saw debris, but couldn't quite see where it was, put the drone in the sky, and I was like, oh, it's right there. So here we are.
Yeah, the drone is actually useful for that too, for discovering and finding.
Search and rescue.
Yeah, totally. Or at least search and find.
Yeah. And when you find, then you know where it is.
Just a second ago, the dog like flopped down on the 4th floor to roll because she's just been in the river, and she went, and Ken went, what was that? It sounded like a call.
And it was scary because there was lots of debris.
They're out here.
Let's go. And they were taken off the river, and they still sit where they were taken off the river at the steam whaler graveyard.
I think the SS Keno actually was taken off. I think it served most of its life on the Stewart River.
Okay.
And then the government actually brought it from the Stewart River after it was decommissioned up the Yukon River.
Yep.
To where it is right now in Dawson City. And what's crazy is that from the time it was decommissioned on the Stewart River and till the time that they wanted to bring it up, a bridge was built across the river that they didn't account for. So they're steam whaling it up the river.
Yeah.
Up the river or down? It'd be down.
No,
up the river.
Actually, you've got a little bit backwards on all that.
Okay. You tell the story then.
It was used on that river, but it was decommissioned in Whitehorse.
Yes.
Okay.
But then
then they sat in the shipyards at Whitehorse. This one and the Keno.
Sure.
And then Parks Canada received them as a gift, and they restored them. And they wanted the SS Keno in Dawson City. So they had to get it transported. So what they did is they went and found crew and captain in Whitehorse that had been on those ships and said, would you take the Keno up to Dawson City?
The original captain.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic.
The guys from the 50s and 60s that said, hey, our original crew, it's sort of like, you know, those movies where all of the soldiers get back into doing something for their last time because they're now old and...
Like Red?
Yeah, like all of those ones.
One of our favorites.
And Expendables, those kind of things.
Retired and extremely dangerous.
They brought together their crew, they took the SS Keno up the river all the way to Dawson City back in the 60s. But they had one problem. There was a new barrier on the river, and that was at CarMax.
That's right.
They had a bridge across the Yukon River at Carmax.
That
and
wasn't
that bridge
there earlier in the
no
40s, yeah.
when the highway was complete, they had a bridge.
Of course.
Now that bridge meant that the Keno had to go under it, and it wouldn't fit. So what did they do?
They actually took the pilot house from the very top, they took it off, and then they also took one of the smokestacks.
The steam stack got lowered
down,
forwards
yeah.
so that it was out of the way, and they with inches went under that bridge.
Literally inches.
It now sits in Dawson City as a national monument.
Yeah.
And we toured it. It was awesome. So talking about the graveyards, what did you think about that?
It was really fascinating to me that there are still pieces of canvas attached to those big beams and such, and of course all the what are the rope cables? That's the word. They look like ropes, but they're metal. Yeah, they're all still there, and yeah, it was just really fascinating. Some of the paint, you can still see the color of paint on the hulls and stuff. So it was really neat.
Why were many of the steam ships painted orange?
They're painted orange because it was cheap paint, because it was a lead oxide, and they added some chemical compound to it that made it last a long time. It was cheap, and it was bright enough that you could actually see it coming from a long way away. So it's safety as well.
And they made the paint here
in Whitehorse.
Yeah.
Yeah. From the natural.
They had those ingredients here.
I know. I love it.
Excellent. Anything else?
Are we talking about Dawson City today, or just the steam wheelers?
Really, just the stern wheelers.
What are they called? I've heard that. Okay, I've heard this: paddle wheeler, steam wheeler, stern wheeler, side wheeler.
Yeah, and they didn't do side wheelers here. This is actually the largest ship that they built for freight. They rebuilt this one because the original one was destroyed in the river, like I mentioned, and they rebuilt this one, and it actually could carry a lot of tonnage.
But what's it called? Is it called a paddle wheeler?
It's a paddle wheeler, stern wheeler.
Stern wheeler and paddle wheeler are the same.
Yeah.
So not a steam.
Because paddle wheeler can mean many things because of where that paddle is, but a stern wheeler tells you what this is.
Right. Okay.
And if you've ever been on the Mark Twain at Disneyland,
Mark Twain.
That was because that's how you navigate rivers. That's how you navigate the continent when rivers were your highway.
Yep. Oh yes, and we did want to do it. I know you talked about Route 66.
Yeah.
But I think it's really interesting to see both sides of that situation. The tour that we went on, the tour guide was talking a lot about how, the highway destroyed the way of life for a lot of the local people, the First Nations people that were in this area. Yeah, I think, yes, it destroyed it in some ways, and in some ways it made it better. So I think it's more accurate to say it changed.
Yeah.
It just drastically changed everything. Some for the better and some for the worse.
What runs this ship? What makes this ship work? And that is they use a boiler and they put in wood. And they use 1 cord of wood per hour, which means they had wood camps all up and down the river where they would pull in, get water, and fill with wood again because they've burnt their wood to get up and down the river. And they couldn't travel at night until after generators and electric light was allowing them to have spotlights.
Mm-hmm. And even then, they could only travel at night going up the river, not down the river, because going down was too fast. Going up, they would have reflectors on the trees so that they could kind of see where the edges are. It's crazy.
That's right.
So crazy. And we did learn, too, that a lot of the forests around here are 2nd and 3rd generation forests because they cut down all the trees in order to feed these big beasts. Crazy. But thankfully, trees are a renewable resource.
Now,
even if it takes time.
The timber that grows here is not the timber that is the big beam style like the Douglas firs.
That's right.
all of the big construction pieces that are wood got hauled in from like lower BC.
So I don't think we're talking about it much in this video, but we will be talking more about the gold rush and how that all happened. And there's a big machine called a dredge. And those dredges they would bring in huge Douglas firs and big trees from the coast, from the southern coast, because they didn't have big enough trees up here to build those dredges. But that's another tale for another day.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And all of the big steel construction pieces came out of Toronto.
Exactly. So
okay, about the stern wheeler on the Yukon River, they call it the lower Yukon River, and that is because there's rapids at Whitehorse, so it was from Whitehorse all the way through to Dawson City. Okay, And there's one more thing I wanted to mention. These only ran for a guarantee of 4 months out of the year, because winter breakup on all of the ice wasn't guaranteed to happen until sometime in May. And when it would start to freeze up and lock up, sometime maybe September, October. So there was still 6 or 7 or 8 months of non-service in those far up north regions. And so when that first sternwheeler came up the river, or actually down the river, the first time, that must have been a huge deal. Can you imagine the dry goods place that says, we're out, we're out, we're out, we're out, and finally that first shipment comes in? Huge deal. And that's how the world was back in the 1890s, because of that gold rush and because of these huge machines.
I hope you enjoyed our little tour of the sternwheelers of the North Country.
Yeah, and the graveyard and the Five Finger Rapids, my goodness, these are incredible places to see.
Totally. We've learned a ton.
Yeah.
If you're in an area where you have a national park or a historical site, we do recommend paying the $6 or $8 or whatever it is.
Take the
tour and you'll learn
Yep.
a ton of stuff. And even if you don't take the tour, make sure you read all the signs and the signboards at rest areas when you're in any of these kind of historic locations. I'm enjoying learning a lot.
Oh, this is incredible. I love it.
I learn more now than when I did when I was in school.
This is like an outside museum.
It is. It's a field trip.
Yeah, it is.
So I hope you guys enjoyed our field trip today.
Hey, my name's Kent,
My name is Lisa.
and we are Living Light RV.
We are grabbing life by the tail. We live full-time in our vintage renovated motorhome. We've been doing it for almost 3 years, and we love this lifestyle. And the best part is we get to share it with you guys on Living Light RV. You guys check out hashtag LLRV
Yeah.
North 21 for more information and more like just pictures and videos on Instagram.
Yep.
And
We're bringing this to
That's
you
it.
without advertisements.
Oh, yeah.
So please subscribe.
because that's free.
See some of our videos from yesteryear.
Yep.
And,
check out our Patreon page,
yes.
patreon.com/livinglightrv, and you can check out our maps where we're going, where we've been, and you
Yeah.
know what? We get to do Zoom sessions with you guys. We love doing that. So yeah, patreon.com/livinglightrv, and if you're going to be shopping on Amazon, use our Amazon links in the description below because we get a little kickback from that. We thank you guys so much for your
Yes.
support. We love each and every one of you. Get out there, go have a fabulous week, and we'll see
And
you
we'll
guys
see you next
Thursday.
Thursday. You got it. The crew had removed the wheelhouse so the Keno could pass under the new road bridge at Carmax, which meant pilot Frank Slim had to watch the river from a lower position.
Right.
First mate Henry Braden remembered, "We were looking down where the channel used to be and it wasn't there."
But that's a different story than the top one.
Yes. Yeah. And this looks like Five Finger Rapids.
I'll bet it is.
I'll bet it is. Wow.
That's so rich.
So running aground, can you imagine saying the river used to be right here? And it's not here? Oh, I will always remember this.